Heaven, I think that's a movie that was lost a bit in the cut. And a friend of mine, Yoko Olo, is in that. He's the big German guy in the beginning that gets an arrow in the neck. He was strongest man in the world twice. That's the guy who actually tried to convince me to come down to Venice and push a fire truck one day. I don't know if I told you that story. The things you get involved in this business.
Yeah, yeah,
But so from the stories from that, and you can see it in the director's cut makes a lot more sense of the main character's trajectory in that, where he suddenly is very good in the cavalry. He's very good on horseback. He's a very good engineer. And the director's cut explains some of that. And that's sort of a movie that's a missed opportunity in a way. But I got to give Scott props for going out. I remember when that
yeah.
started and we were
I
like,
think
wow.
Orlando Bloom was miscast, and not because of anything to do with him and his ability. It's just that I had just 2 years earlier, I think, come off Troy, where
Right.
Orlando played a real wuss of a character. So to see him in costume, although the Trojan War is centuries before the Crusades, to see him in a similar sort of costume, I would just kept harkening back to the character he played. I don't remember who it was. It was
Right.
Hector's
Right.
brother in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, will you like Troy and Wolfgang Peterson? We'll get to Peterson
yes,
in a second, but staying on the Kingdom of Heaven thing that was actually, I think, the first time I heard about a really aggressive approach to doing a project centered around the Crusades, which, by the way, is incredibly vast. That's a vast subject to tackle. But Schwarzenegger was the guy that was trying to push for a Crusades film.
really.
Yeah, he was pushing hard for it, and he wanted to do it with what's his name, Andy Vajna, the guy who's the producer that owns the casino in Europe. Um,
Oh, it could
Vajna, I
be
think.
him, but they
Yeah, but didn't work. Scott, I think, may have even been in a running to direct that. Schwarzenegger may have even approached him to. Anyway, so Kingdom of Heaven, missed opportunity. Milius had a lot of respect for Ridley Scott, but the director that Milius, I think, got along with the best. I don't know if he'd agree with this, but my assessment was Walter Hill. Those two guys
oh
were
yeah.
like two. Walter Hill and Milius in a room were like two kids breaking into your father's liquor cabinet on a Friday night. Those guys were like two rascals,
Yeah.
just with what they would come up with and how they would do it and the respect they had for each other. They did a
And
what's the
Walter Hill did one of my favorite movies of all time. I say that and then I can't remember the title. No, it's
okay,
Hard
so
Times. No,
let
it's
me
Hard
look.
Times.
Oh, Hard
With
Times. Okay, so that's not what I would have guessed from you. I wouldn't say the Warriors either. I was going to say my favorite is Southern Comfort or the Long Riders, and I would have felt like you would
I
have
never
picked one
saw
of those.
that.
Well, you need to. It's on YouTube actually for free. I
Oh,
shouldn't have
okay,
probably.
okay. I'll check it
Southern
out.
Comfort, Southern
Yeah,
Comfort.
but Hard Times, with the
Mhm.
um Charles Bronson and James Coburn and my good friend Bruce Glover is in it, playing a loan shark.
Yeah.
Um, Jill Ireland, of course, she did almost all of Charles Bronson. She was married to Charles Bronson. He was her second husband. She was married
Yeah.
to David McCallum before Charles Bronson.
David McCullum of Great Escape fame.
Yeah, and Ducky on NCIS.
So
Man
a
from
friend,
Uncle.
yeah, a friend of mine who passed away, Michael Winter, directed Bronson 6 or 7 times. Death Wish, The Mechanic, Chado's Land. Loved
Those, you know
Bronson.
what? But those are the movies. That's what, Michael Winter probably could have guided Steven Seagal to a better career
Oh, for
because that's what
sure.
all the Steven Seagal movies were basically
Right.
ripoffs of Charles Bronson,
Well,
except that Steven was bringing, martial arts into it instead of
mhm.
brute force.
No,
You know?
so that's a great point and a fun one to think about because Winter was such a good architect of efficient action. In fact, Walter Hill, I think, learned a lot from him because Walter Hill wrote Death Wish and Winter directed it. And I think Hill borrows a lot from Winter's style, which is look, don't get too tricky. Set him up and kill him.
Yeah.
And that's just the way they would map it out, the way Winter would map it out. I mean, Winter was fantastic. I mean, everyone I know, every actor I know, with the exception of Rico Ross, who was Corporal Frost in Aliens, every actor I know that auditioned for Winter hated him and had nothing but terrible things to say about him in the audition process or even working with him to some degree, with the exception of Rico and myself. I loved him. I got a Christmas card from him every holiday. He was the most generous, easygoing guy. So I don't know what he was like in the workplace, but he could deliver a movie, man. Of that, there is no question, and
Yeah.
he's missed.
Your road to redemption is paved with tombstones. No quarter, kill all masters. Go to noquarterkillallmasters.com. Rated R.